Los Angeles, 1985. The city of dreams became a nightmare. A shadow stalked the night. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, brought terror to every doorstep. No one was safe. His crimes, brutal and random, paralyzed the city. Fear seeped into homes, tainting the California sunshine. Sleep offered no escape, only the dread of a creaking floorboard, a shattered window. Ramirez's motives remained a mystery. His victims, a chilling tapestry of age, race, and social strata. The only common thread, the sheer brutality of their demise and the satanic symbols left behind. The Night Stalker became an obsession. His face, a haunting image plastered across newspapers and television screens. The city held its breath, waiting for the next horrific headline. Richard Ramirez wasn't born a monster, but his childhood was a breeding ground for darkness. From an early age, he was surrounded by an environment that would shape his future in the most sinister ways. The seeds of his monstrous transformation were sown in the very fabric of his upbringing. Born in El Paso, Texas, his early years were marked by violence and instability. The neighborhood he grew up in was a tough one, where crime and hardship were part of daily life. This harsh environment played a significant role in molding his young mind. His father, an ex-policeman, was prone to fits of rage. The household was often a battleground with young Richard caught in the crossfire. His father's anger was a constant, unpredictable force that left a lasting impression on him. Young Richard witnessed beatings, the air thick with fear and resentment. The violence he saw at home was not just physical but emotional, creating a toxic atmosphere that stifled any sense of normalcy or security. These early experiences left an indelible mark, twisting his perception of the world. The trauma he endured began to warp his understanding of right and wrong, setting him on a path of moral decay. A cousin, a Vietnam War veteran, introduced him to the allure of violence. This cousin, who had seen the horrors of war, shared gruesome stories and images with young Richard, further distorting his already fragile psyche. Gruesome photographs of torture and murder became Richard's twisted education. These images were not just pictures to him, they were lessons in brutality, teaching him that violence was a way to exert power and control. His fascination with death grew. What started as a morbid curiosity soon became an obsession, as he sought out more and more disturbing material to feed his dark interests. By his teens, Ramirez was adrift, dabbling in drugs and petty crime. The combination of his traumatic upbringing and his exposure to violence had set him on a dangerous trajectory, one that would lead him deeper into the shadows. His descent into darkness had begun. The once innocent child was now a teenager, lost in a world of drugs, crime, and a growing fascination with death and violence. The seeds of evil, planted in his childhood, were starting to bloom. The combination of a violent home, a harsh environment, and a twisted education in brutality had created a perfect storm, transforming Richard Ramirez into the monster he would become. The first whispers of the Night Stalker's reign began in June 1984, a brutal murder in San Francisco. The victim, a young woman, found in her apartment, stabbed repeatedly. Months later, the killing spree resumed, this time in Los Angeles. The victims, seemingly random, their ages ranging from a 9-year-old girl to an elderly couple in their 80s. The modus operandi varied: shootings, stabbings, bludgeoning. The one constant, the sheer brutality and the chilling lack of remorse. The city lived in terror. Doors were bolted, windows barred, parents huddled with terrified children, whispering prayers for protection. A chilling pattern emerged in the Night Stalker's chaos. His reign of terror was not just a series of random acts. It was a meticulously crafted nightmare that gripped the city in fear. He often entered homes through unlocked doors and windows, a silent predator in the night. His victims, unaware of the lurking danger, would be caught off guard in their most vulnerable moments. He would disable phone lines, plunging his victims into darkness and isolation. This act of cutting off communication was not just a tactic, it was a psychological weapon, amplifying the terror and helplessness of those inside. His crimes were not merely acts of violence, they were rituals. Each scene was meticulously staged, each act a part of a dark ceremony that only he understood. He forced some victims to swear their love for Satan. This was not just a means to an end, it was a twisted form of control, a way to instill fear and submission. He posed bodies, eyes left open, staring into eternity. This macabre display was a signature, a way to leave a lasting impression of horror. The pentagram, a satanic symbol, became his calling card, scrawled on walls and even on the body of one victim. It was a mark of his presence, a sign that he had been there and would strike again. The city was his canvas, and he painted it with terror and the macabre. Each crime scene was a stroke in his dark masterpiece, each victim a part of his twisted art. His seeming randomness only amplified the fear. No one could predict where he would strike next, and this unpredictability kept the entire city on edge. No one knew who would be next. The fear was palpable, a constant presence that haunted the streets and homes of the city. The entire city felt vulnerable, living under the shadow of his evil. News reports and whispers of his latest atrocities spread like wildfire, feeding the collective anxiety and dread. The Night Stalker had turned the city into a living nightmare, where every shadow held the potential for unspeakable horror. As the body count rose, so did the pressure on the LAPD. The media scrutiny was relentless. The public demanded justice, their fear palpable. A massive manhunt was underway, the largest in California history. A lucky break came in August 1985. Ramirez, unaware of the dragnet closing in, traveled to Arizona. His image, captured on a security camera, was broadcast nationwide. Days later, a group of East Los Angeles residents, recognizing the fugitive, chased him down and held him until the police arrived. The Night Stalker's reign of terror was over. The trial of Richard Ramirez was a media spectacle. Cameras crowded the courtroom, eager to capture every detail. The world watched, captivated by the horrors he had unleashed. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, fingerprints, eyewitness accounts, and ballistic matches. Ramirez, unrepentant, reveled in the attention. He flashed satanic symbols to the cameras, his eyes gleaming with a chilling detachment. The jury's verdict was swift and unanimous. Guilty on all charges, including 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. The courtroom erupted in cheers. Sentenced to death, Ramirez was sent to San Quentin State Prison. His infamy followed him. He received fan mail, some even professing their love for the condemned killer. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Ramirez maintained his innocence, blaming his crimes on satanic influences. He seemed to relish his notoriety, granting interviews and becoming a macabre celebrity for those fascinated by the dark side of humanity. Ramirez spent over 2 decades on death row, his appeals exhausted. His health deteriorated, ravaged by years of drug abuse and a life of violence. In 2013, at the age of 53, Richard Ramirez died from complications of B-cell lymphoma. His death sparked mixed reactions. Some felt a sense of relief, the final chapter closing on a dark period in history. Others, haunted by his crimes, found little solace in his demise. The devil, to whom he had pledged his allegiance, had finally come to collect his due. The terror that Richard Ramirez unleashed on Los Angeles left an enduring scar. His reign of terror in the mid-1980s was marked by a series of brutal and senseless crimes that shook the city to its core. The Night Stalker, as he came to be known, was not just a criminal, he was a symbol of fear, a dark figure who haunted the dreams of countless residents. His crimes were random, his methods were ruthless, and his impact was profound. The city, once a symbol of hope and opportunity, had been forced to confront the darkness lurking beneath the surface. Los Angeles, with its sunny skies and glamorous allure, was suddenly cast in a shadow of dread. The vibrant streets and iconic landmarks became backdrops to a series of horrific events that left the community reeling. The media coverage was relentless, and the fear was palpable. People locked their doors, looked over their shoulders, and wondered if they would be next. His victims, forever linked by tragedy, bore the physical and emotional scars of his crimes. Each life he touched was irrevocably altered, leaving behind a trail of pain and sorrow. The victims were diverse, spanning different ages, backgrounds, and walks of life, yet they were united by the horror they endured. Memorials and vigils became common sights as the community came together to mourn and remember those lost to Ramirez's brutality. Their families, forever changed, continued to grapple with the loss and the knowledge that their loved ones' final moments were filled with terror. The emotional toll was immense, and the healing process was slow and painful. Interviews with the families revealed stories of heartbreak and resilience as they struggled to find a sense of normalcy in the aftermath of such unimaginable violence. The community's support was a beacon of hope, but the scars remained. The Night Stalker may be gone, but his legacy serves as a chilling reminder of the vulnerability of life and the darkness that can reside within seemingly ordinary individuals. The trial of Richard Ramirez was a spectacle, drawing attention from across the nation. His demeanor in court, often defiant and unrepentant, only added to the horror of his crimes. The conviction brought a sense of justice, but it could never erase the pain he caused. His story is a stark reminder of the evil that can lurk behind a human facade. His name remains synonymous with terror, a cautionary tale whispered in the dead of night, a reminder that even in the city of dreams, nightmares can come true. The legacy of the Night Stalker is a haunting chapter in the history of Los Angeles, a city that has seen its share of darkness but continues to shine. The stories of his victims and the resilience of their families serve as a testament to the human spirit's capacity to endure and overcome even the most harrowing